Well, folks, here again for the weekly forecast. During this last week, the main focus was that upper air low moving out of the southwestern western United States into the central plains. Exactly, the precipitation was not nearly as much as was anticipated by the models. I think the models are really focusing more into a spring, early summer pattern where we have more moisture in the atmosphere. Hence, the precipitation totals just aren't there. And one of the primary focuses is that we're not seeing our high temperatures up strongly enough into the 70s, and our low temperatures have been consistently down into the upper 30s to the mid 40s. And we really want to see our low temperatures up into the low 50s before we could get good thunderstorm development. So the one thing I'm looking at is that at least we are seeing a progression of storms moving across the region. And just like last spring when we had the same problem, we're working with the northwest flow aloft. It took a while for us to build up that moisture in the atmosphere for those systems to work on. I think that's our same process that we're seeing right now. So I look at it as a positive sign that we're seeing an endless string of storms moving across the western United States. If we can just get the moisture entrained into these systems, we're going to start to see the precipitation break out rather dramatically across a good portion of the Corn Belt. In fact, if you go from Iowa eastward, I think the big news over this next 2-week period is going to be too much of a good thing, and that's really going to slow down planting intentions. Now, as we go to the upper air models, what we will see for today is that we have a trough once again moving into the Pacific Northwest, but this first system is not expected to have a dramatic impact on Nebraska as it moves and slides across the northern plains. We may see a slight cool down as we go into tomorrow, but as this system moves across the northern plains, we will see fairly nice conditions here in the state of Nebraska for today, but as we get into the evening hours, there is an indication we might see a low-level jet develop across the central plains, and some of that moisture may entrain itself up into south central Nebraska with a few isolated showers or thunderstorms, and then that will congeal maybe and move across southeastern Nebraska, but more importantly, it's probably going to hit north central and northeastern Kansas with more of the heavier precipitation. So by the time we get to tomorrow, we'll see that the upper air low is now moving toward the Great Lakes. A slight cool down because the cold air is going to be pressing in the northern part of the state. We'll be looking at about 5 degrees lower in highs tomorrow. And then as we get into Monday, that system rapidly moves into the Great Lakes and we see ridging taking place aloft. And what that means is we're going to have a couple nice days ahead of us. Statewide, we'll be looking primarily at all areas in the 70s except extreme northeastern Nebraska, where we may be more in the mid to upper 60s. And by Tuesday, more of the same things, but we now have another trough that is starting to approach the western United States and digging into the central Rockies. And we also have the remnants and upper air lows moving across the southern plains that is sort of expected to start lifting some moisture up into Nebraska. So the combination of this low moving forward and this low level moisture in place, there is a chance that we're going to start to see some widespread precipitation breaking out late Tuesday and more importantly on Wednesday. And if this system even slows down a little bit more, we will get a much better moisture output from this system as there will be much more moisture in place for the system to work on. So by the time we get to Wednesday, we'll see the system moving into the western part of the state. On the backside, we'll start to filter in some cold air. We might actually see some light snow breaking out and across the northwestern panhandle. But more importantly, as this system moves toward eastern Nebraska, we could see a line of very severe thunderstorms developing from Minnesota all the way down through Texas. And on the backside, we'll be in the colder air, more stratiform rain, and the potential for accumulation of snow and grassy surfaces across central and northern Nebraska. By the time we get to Friday, this system starts to cut itself off over the eastern Corn Belt, which will mean a few days of consistent precipitation, and that will include the backside with waves of precipitation breaking out across eastern Nebraska. For the western part of the state, clearing skies and cold air funneling down, and we may actually see some freezing temperatures dropping all the way down into the Texas Panhandle. So as we look at the temperature forecast, you see the warmer temperatures hold through the middle of next week, but we see that increasing chance of shower activity with potential snow also late in the week. 8 to 14-day forecast indicates the cold air will remain in place, and in terms of precipitation, normal to above normal precipitation from the Rockies eastward.